Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 18, Statistical Inference Test of Hypothesis. The Unit 18 deals with statistical inference, which uses the concept of probability to explain the element of uncertainty in decision making. You would find that though it occupies a lower status among statistical tests, you would be able to use chi-square test in a wide variety of researches. If you have a relatively smaller sample, it would be better to use student's test, that is a parametric test. You would learn in this unit in detail about both chi-square and student's test. For hypothesis testing, this unit is going to prove to be most helpful in the mini research project. Now let us move to the next point, statistical inference. Statistical inference uses the concept of probability to deal with uncertainty in decision making. It refers to the process of selecting and using a sample statistics to draw inferences about a population parameter based on a sample drawn from the population. Statistical inference takes care of the two classes of problems. First, hypothesis testing, and second, estimation. Hypothesis testing tests some hypotheses about the parent population based on the sample drawn from the population, and estimation uses the statistics obtained from the sample as an estimation of the unknown parameter of the population based on the sample drawn from the population. The first is hypothesis testing. It begins with an assumption called a hypothesis that one makes about a population parameter. Steps in testing a hypothesis are formulate a hypothesis, decide an appropriate significance level, select a test criteria, carry out calculations, and make decisions. Let us discuss in brief each of the 5 steps. The first one is formulate a hypothesis. First of all, a hypothesis is set up about a population parameter. Thereafter, sample data is collected, sample statistics calculated, and the information is used to assess how far the hypothesized parameter is correct. Examining the difference between the hypothesized value and the actual value of the sample's mean tests the validity of an assumption. Conventionally, rather than a single hypothesis, 2 are constructed. These hypotheses are constructed in such a way that if one hypothesis is accepted, the other is rejected. The 2 hypotheses are called Null Hypothesis, designated as H0, and Alternative Hypothesis, designated as HA. In the simplest form, a null hypothesis states that there is no true difference between the sample statistics and the population parameter. It asserts that the observed difference is accidental and unimportant, arising out of the fluctuations in the sample. A researcher, for instance, who wishes to test whether the annual per capita income in a community is higher than rupees 10,000, might formulate the null and alternate hypothesis as null hypothesis H0 ratio mu is equal to 10,000 and alternative hypothesis HA ratio mu is greater than 10,000. In another instance, a researcher might wish to test the mean difference between the annual per capita incomes of two groups. In this case, she might formulate the null and alternate hypothesis as null hypothesis H0 ratio mu1 minus mu2 is equal to 0. Alternative hypothesis HA ratio mu1 minus mu2 summation 0. Now let us move to the next point, decide an appropriate significant level. The next step in testing hypothesis is to set up a suitable significance level to test the validity of H0 as against HA. The confidence with which a null hypothesis is adopted or rejected depends on the adopted significance level. Conventionally, the significance level is expressed as percentage, such as 5% or 1%. In the former case, it would mean that there is 5% probability of rejecting a null hypothesis, even if true. This means that there are 5 out of 100 chances that the investigator would reject a true hypothesis. The next point is select a test criteria. The next step in hypothesis testing is to set up a test criteria. An appropriate probability distribution that can be applied is selected for the particular test. Some of the common probability distribution are chi-square, T and F. The next step is carry out calculations. Computation is carried out of various statistics and their standard errors based on sample. Now the next point is make decisions. In this step, statistical conclusion and decisions are made to reject or accept the null hypothesis depending on whether the computed value falls in the region of acceptance or rejection. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self-Learning Podcast.